Hey there, this is Ben Currier, self-proclaimed world's #1 failure. In this podcast, we'll learn about the hardest moments my guests faced and the failures they endured on their path towards making it. I hope you enjoy. Hey, it's Ben here, and in addition to this podcast, I also teach Microsoft Excel online. Visit excelexposure.com for more information and use the coupon code FAILURE for 20% off of the lifetime access to the course. Stay tuned after the episode for a little bit more information as to why it's so important to improve your Excel skills and unlock your inner Excel ninja. Thanks. Hey there, friends of failure, and welcome to this week's episode of the Failure Guy podcast. I am here with Erica Wiederlight. How are you doing there, Erica?
I'm so good. I'm so psyched. I can't wait to talk about all the things.
Me neither. Before we get into some of the failures and some of the missteps you've taken, do you want to give the listeners a humble brag, a shameless self-promotion, the shout from the rooftops, mountaintops, all the good things you've done, so that when we deflate you in a little bit, you'll at least have been pumped up?
Yeah, so I'm like, bring me down. But yeah, I would love to. So I am a sexual empowerment and dating coach, and it's really for all humans that feel called to work with me. We work on confidence, dating others, yourself, feeling empowered.
I'm very excited. Sounds good. Before we get into talking about some of your hopefully hilarious,
Yeah, I'm like, before you take me down,
missteps, I'm curious. Your #1 piece of advice, is it going to be self-love? Is it got to start with yourself, I imagine?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm like, that's just cut through my whole brand. I'm like, through my book, I'm like, thank you for dissolving everything.
If that works for anybody, I'm very surprised, because it's hopefully much more difficult to get there.
Well, here's the thing too, like, we don't have to talk about it for too long, but like, you know the deal. It's like that's like a very hot topic right now, like self-love, self-trust, all the things. And I'm like, I'm thrilled this is becoming a more normal conversation, but people are like, what the hell do I do with this information? Like, I know I should love myself, but like, what does that mean? Like, how do I implement that?
Yeah.
So that's like part of my work. I hear it on the podcast. You can read it in the book. I work with my clients. Like, it's great that we understand this concept of self-love, but like, what does that mean day to day? Because it's like, feels overwhelming, so, but you kind of boiled my whole business model down to a keyword. So thank you.
Well, it can't end there, because to be a pleasure expert,
no, it can't.
You can't just love yourself, because that'll be just masturbation all the time, I imagine. So,
which is nothing wrong with that. I celebrate all the people that want to go on that route,
Yeah. Well, they'd start in the same place, right? I guess we'd all start with self-love. And I am no expert in self-love. I think you've struggled to get there. I don't know how much you are there and living there permanently.
Yes. It's like, it feels crazy. Like, I feel like I've lived 27 different lives, because if you told me, just even take high school me, that I was doing this, I would have passed away. Because I was like, first of all, I've been like, excuse me, what is that job? But second of all, I would have been like, I was so anxiety ridden. I was so insecure. So the fact that like I genuinely like myself is kind of crazy. So, and that's why I do this work. Like, I'm like, I've done this. I'm not just like throwing random stuff at people and being like, this might work. Like, I have actively done this work. And that's why I'm so passionate about holding people through this work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that you didn't say died. You said passed away, because it just sounded so
passed away.
I don't know, like you had no control of it, but also that it was from like a third party perspective.
It sure was. Yeah, I passed,
because you're a different person, I guess, right?
I felt like fully.
So paint us a picture of the old one. Who?
Oh God.
Who would have passed away?
I'm like sweating already. Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, oh God, here we go. I'm like, and the balloons are about to deflate. I'm like, and we're coming down. That person was like, I mean, the anxiety was fucking, oh, sorry. Am I allowed to?
You can swear. Yeah. Fucking hell yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. I was like,
I mark them all explicit, even if they're not.
Perfect. Because I was like, I tried for the first like 2 minutes. I was like, I'm gonna be good, and I just can't help myself. So great. So just so fucking insecure. Like it makes me cringe. I mean, now it's like funny, but like I'd make my friends like get my lunch, I'd be like, oh my God, like no one could see me eat. I can't like stand up in front of the class, like just panic ridden, like just so fucking uncomfortable in my body. And I like could not concentrate in school. Like, I mean, first of all, I hated it anyway, but I wasn't like, oh, I could listen to this history. Like I probably actually would have liked it, but because I was so like, oh God, like, oh, like, is my hair like getting frizzy or is it like, I was not there. Like I was not present.
Don't pick on me to read kind of thing.
Right. Well, exactly. But then I used my humor because I was like, you know what I mean? So it got like a sticky. I used humor for so long, as so many comedians, not that I'm saying I'm a famous comedian, but that so many comedians do. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to use my humor.
Self-deprecation.
Totally. Like I'm going to get to myself before you get to me.
That's what I did with number one failure. If I'm the world's number one failure, or I mean, I can't be talking down at you. I can't be possibly above you.
Yep.
So I thought it would, if my tone sucks and I sound like I'm arrogant, at least there's no way they can think I'm talking down to them. I mean, they could, I guess, still, but my point was to try to beat them to the punch.
Yes.
With that. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
And was it a long, slow slog to get from that to where you're at now?
Oh, it was like a joke. I'm like, wow, the universe fucking tortured me. No, but it was a slog, and it came out in different ways. Like middle school was one flavor, high school was a different flavor, college was a different flavor, after college was a very different flavor. But all same threads of self-hate and negative self-talk. Like all of those thread lines were in there, even though the flavor kind of changed.
It was Neapolitan ice cream of self-hate.
Fully. But I wouldn't even give it that much love. Like, yeah, it was that bad throughout, but different.
Expired.
Totally. There we are.
Not frozen. Yeah. Melting everywhere.
No, not frozen. It was very rancid. It was rancid milk throughout.
Okay, so let's start. I mean, what are there memorable failures on your path towards to being the comfortable you that I see at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's funny. The first one that I was thinking of, I wanted to talk about this because it was a perceived failure, and it actually wasn't. And I wanted to like shed light on that. Was I guess I still do, have a learning disability. And I came from a very affluent, it's like fucking crazy, the stories. Like we actually would walk into school and I'm like, this is very fucked up, but we would walk into school every morning and they'd chant, "We're number one. And I guess it was like as a way to like hype us, but I was like, get me out of this hellhole. But they'd be like, we're
the teachers or the students or everybody.
Oh, the principal, the teachers, as we like marched into school, they're like, and it wasn't like good for you, like I'm boosting. Came from a place of we're number one, but it was like we're number one because we had the best test scores like in the state.
They were chanting themselves.
Yeah. So it wasn't like good for you, like rock on students. It was like, fuck you, you better be number one. Like we better not slide. And so that's like a little dark. And don't worry, I single-handedly probably brought that test score down. I was like, here we go.
They're number two after you.
No, yeah, like thanks, Wiederlight. Like we officially are number two. But it was from that place. So imagine that type of like, you need to be perfect, very dystopia, like that type of vibe. And then, oh my God, having a learning disability, you were the cursed child. You know, not for my parents. They were like, we don't care. But like, you were the cursed child.
Do you want to be more specific as to what it is, or you don't have to?
Yeah, I'm like, what? It's like an auditory processing, which is so funny because like I do this all of the time. I have a fucking podcast. I'm a voiceover actor. So I'm like, how interesting is the thing that I apparently was shit at?
Yeah.
Is one of like my things. You know what I mean? Isn't that funny?
You're handy capable.
Right.
I think, right?
Right. So it's like,
because I've got ADHD and I still have it and I'm still easily distracted and I haven't mastered the game, but it seems like you've gotten past whatever the hell an auditory thing. What is the life experience of that? I don't even understand.
I don't either.
Like, so you don't process things that are said?
I guess. Yeah. And I think I have a little ADD. Like I have a little flavor of everything, but I like I said, I have a little ADD, but the auditory processing, they were really just, it was a very, I have this like, now I don't give a shit, but like right after high school, I had this like dream of like writing these teachers, these letters and being like, fuck you, I succeeded, but it's so funny because at the time, I mean, for years, it was perceived as a failure and like something's wrong with you. And I mean, they were embarrassing. Like it wasn't just like they would fucking rip you out of the class. They would like treat you like an absolute idiot. Like, but I have to tell you, it's made me who I am because like it's made me be funny. It's made me stick up for myself. Like so I thought this for years, it was my biggest failure. And in actuality, it's made me who I am. And it's pretty bad. And also that I was like, fuck that. Since I can't quote unquote do it, I'm not doing a corporate job. So it actually gave me so many good things. But at the time I perceived it as just the worst failure.
It took me getting fired 6 times to say I'm done with corporate America. And I still don't even know if I am done. So I'm happy that you early on decided to screw that shit. I'm going my own direction. I'm trying to figure out if you're here. So you hear things, but it's how you translate it in your own mind. That's where the disability gets in the way. Is that right?
It is. And this is kind of very telling of my personality. I kind of was like, I don't give a shit. Like they were like, this is what you have. And I'm like, fuck you. I don't care.
I can't hear you.
Like I was I was like, yeah, like, fully. It's so funny because now I think I'd be like, oh, I want to like learn what this is and how I could be supported. But I was like, fuck this. Like, I don't care. Like I actually, because I was so obsessed with not being defined by it. So I think I'd be like, that's okay. Like, I think I'd have more understanding and forgiveness. I'd be like, okay, like, that's great. Like, how can I support myself? Like, I think I'd go approach it through a different lens where then I was like, fuck you. You're not going to like, I'm not going to be defined by this, because I was embarrassed because they treated it like an illness. So I was like, I don't want to know. You know what I mean?
Mental health has changed. I mean, the openness with which we are about mental health society wise has changed a lot. So now it's, maybe it's cool to be auditory processing or whatever. Maybe you get like a chanted year number 1 these days. I don't know. I hope so, because it was very much pendulum was on the other side to your point back in those days.
Yes.
But that sounds awful. So that didn't help with your self-confidence, I imagine.
Oh, it was putrid. And again, this was not only did the teacher, I mean, there were some good teachers, but the teachers and the staff like encourage this. It also was a very competitive environment, so a lot of the kids also were like, I want to go to Harvard, I want to go to Yale. And I'm like, hello. Like, I'm like, I want to go to Starbucks after school. Like, I was just like, I don't like, at the time, again, I'm a completely different human because they put me in a box and then I played into that box. You know what I mean? Like with the self-deprecating humor and with those things. So it was a very, very, very toxic environment.
Did you date at all in high school?
No.
Okay, because you were a troll, a wretch in your own mind, undateable.
Yeah, and in actuality, I was like a little gem. I'm like, what a cute little angel. I mean, it wasn't an angel for, but you know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah. But I took a whole, I made a story that like, oh my God, I'm the worst. Like I made this whole story, which it's funny. It's obviously it bleeds into business now. Like you're stupid and you can't do that. That shit as much, it's still always a part of you. You work on it, but it always pops up.
Now, imposter syndrome is huge with a lot of people. And if you're telling yourself this type of stuff at such an early age and all the time, it can be tough to show anybody a good side of you if you don't even think there is one.
Right. Exactly. Because you feel fundamentally wrong.
So when did you start dating then?
I guess, high school, a bat of an eyelash, if you will. Like I wasn't like,
gotcha.
So
you held hands at the roller rink or something, right? That's what my version is.
Oh, like I wouldn't say that innocent. I'm like, if my parents don't hear this. I would more of a.
I was speaking from a 5th grade perspective. I still
like,
remember Stephanie McMahon. We went to whatever. We would talk on the phone and we held hands at the roller rink. But
oh, that's so pure.
I know, but I also went to an all-guys Catholic high school, so I didn't have much dating ability in high school. So I and just like you, they were very much full of themselves. So it was all about going to college and stuff. But thankfully, even though I have ADHD, I wasn't diagnosed till in my 20s, but I did really good in school. it was when I had to get a job that it was like, what the hell is this?
Right. That's interesting.
I thought I did all the work. I thought my stepdad said you either play now and pay later, or you pay now and play later. So after I paid and did all the good schooling, I was like, am I supposed to play?
Right.
Now I got to go work forever, endlessly.
You're like, what is this? Yeah.
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 So I wanted to play, so I, played in different ways. But my point is, it didn't give me a healthy relationship with who I should be, but also the lack of women in high school.
Right.
And then college was a shit show in terms of like trying to figure out how dating works. So I at least, like you, was super inexperienced going into college.
Right. And also, yeah, exactly. Like there was a whole, again, when you make a persona, you know what I mean? Like when you create a persona of, I'm the funny one, I'm the this, like that's toxic too. And that bled into college. You know what I mean? Like, so that persona was celebrated, but I'm like, this is not my full truth. You know what I mean? So it's warped because you're only letting people see like 2% of you, if you will.
Yeah. And not a good 2%.
No, I'm like, oh, this is a persona. You know what I mean? So it's
the watery part of skim milk.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's why I'm like, and that's why now it's like it's interesting to re-relate to people I haven't seen in years.
Oh yeah, because I mean, I don't even do that. I don't reach back into the past. Not really. I mean, I don't even go on Facebook really, but
wow.
I even, like, when I post my stuff there, I post it through another thing because I hate it. I don't know. Something about it to me. I remember back in the day when you needed a college email and Facebook was cool, and then all of a sudden all your family's there and you got to see all this stuff. I can't keep up with all that. I can't care.
I hear you.
I can't even post. But
I hear you.
So you went to college.
Yes.
Did things improve there, or did you just...
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And again, here's the thing. No one really knew I had a learning disability. So I felt free.
Mm-hmm.
But I now had a shtick. She's funny. She's outrageous. Like so it was something, it was okay. We're letting go of the learning disability because it was in college, it wasn't as a big deal. And also remember, or you don't know this, but I went to school for theater performance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also was in a sorority. So as my friends were, in the sorority, were writing dissertations senior year, I was taking a tap class. You know what I mean? So it's like, I never had to, the learning disability thing didn't really come up because it's like, I wasn't taking tests. I was singing for a grade, or I was doing a monologue for a grade. So that kind of thing dissipated a little bit. But then the new thing that was up was the shtick and the persona that I created. And then
it's funny.
Yeah.
I would have hated doing what you had to do as a test. Cause I would be book smart. I would not be the guy who'd get up, and I remember dropping a class just because they were going to film it and show us back ourselves. And I was like, oh, I'm out of here. Cause at that point I was not comfortable being on camera, being in front of people. So you doing your drama thing, to me, that sounds like a way scarier thing than the business school route, which is the way that I went. But I also was in a fraternity, so I'm sure we both got a unhealthy relationship with alcohol.
Yeah, just like dark thing. Yes. Yeah, I'm like, what happened there?
Okay.
And theater too. Theater people like to party.
Yeah, but sorority must have boosted your confidence, right? You're accepted.
It did. And here's the thing. I felt like I finally was... See, there's this thing that my friends and I say, but we're like, they give off mayor vibes. So the mayor vibe is like, they're like, hello, how are you? And at that school, I got to be the mayor. You know what I mean? Like there was many mayors, but like I had the theater people. I had, if I dated someone in the fraternity, I knew their fraternity. Like I was allowed to be in my true again, like it became a persona a little bit, but at least I was like, they don't know I have a fucking learning disability. You know what I mean? Like I got to be...
Yeah. And you had multiple audiences to try it out with, it sounds like.
Oh, truly. Yeah, exactly. And it was a small school. So you really get to be the mayor. You're like, how are you? How was this? You got like this whole thing got to have life, if you will.
So no pun intended, you got to play with yourself and therefore get better at hopefully presenting yourself to the world.
Yes. And here, it's
as a mayor of sorts, I guess.
That's the mayor. Yeah, exactly. As the mayor. Yeah. And what's funny is that we did have some tests because like we had to take, some classes, and I remember, I think freshman year, I mean, I bombed a class, like bombed. And normally it's like normal life. You're like, oh, that sucks, but here we go. But this was like a conservatory type program. So if you fail this, like you're kind of fucked. Like it's like in succession. So I was like, oh, I failed this, like whatever, here we go. And like the next year or the next semester, we're all sitting there and the teacher just was like, Wiederlight, what are you doing in here? And I was like, I'm here for my class. And she's like, you fucking royally failed last year. And so it's funny because that failure, I was like, bitch, like, no, and it actually propelled me. Like I was supposed to take all these tests because this was more of a written class in like a resource room, if you will.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, fuck no. Like I was like, I'm taking it. And what's funny, you're gonna laugh at this, is it was a music class. It was a musical theater class, really. But part of the test is she did music from now to like 1920s, and she'd play probably 7 seconds of it. And within that 7 seconds, we'd have to write the song, the composer, the year, and how funny. That's my fucking learning disability.
Oh, man.
And I was like, bitch, no. But let me tell you, so I failed royally.
Squatters' rights, though. Squatters' rights. You were in the classroom.
I got an A. I got an A. And it's not just like, oh, I got an A, ha ha. Like, you don't understand. People were thrilled if they got C's. Because I'm like,
you were playing Name That Tune, basically?
Yes, class? But it was very hard. It wasn't like we were like, it wasn't.
It's not easy on TV either.
Lizzo. Right, but it wasn't like Lizzo or Lady Gaga. This was like 1927. Like I'm like boring shit that you heard two notes of. You know what I mean?
Scott Joplin, Ragtime.
Yeah, truly. No, like not fun. You know, be like beep beep, and then you're like, okay, got her. Like I have to write this down. So, but it's interesting. That was a perceived failure. You know, like, and she fucking kicked me out in front of the entire class. It was super embarrassing.
How long did it take you to leave?
I was like, what? Like, I didn't get it. Like, and she's like, you have to go. And so that was the first day of class and I had to leave.
2 minutes, 5 minutes. What were you, how long are you in front of the class? Like looking like a jackass is really,
I mean, a solid few. And meanwhile, yeah, I was like, okay, great. But I was like, let me tell you, this shit's not happening again. I was like, and also this is a sidebar too, but like that quote unquote failure, I couldn't get into the sorority. Meanwhile, I didn't know, but they're like, you have to have all good grades.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yep. So I couldn't get into the sorority and I couldn't get into the plays or the musicals because you need a certain amount of grades. So it actually propelled me to be like, all right, bitches, I'm trying to get into the sorority and I'm trying to get, not that I got cast, but I'm trying to get into, at least have the opportunity to get into this play or this musical.
Yeah. You didn't know how important that other thing was.
Truly.
Well,
yeah.
So you buckled down. Is that what I'm hearing?
I guess, yeah. But it was from a place of like not proving myself, but I think for the first time I was like, oh, I'm not done. Like I'm a bad bitch. You know what I mean? And I think the sorority helped that too. No, I was already confident. Like I already was like confident in a sense of like, I know who I am. But why the sorority helped is because theater, I mean, I literally would fucking tap, like go out the night before and then jazz dance, you know? So that was not helping the academic confidence, but the sorority did, because I think I was like philanthropic chair or something. And it was like, you have to send the notes. You have to get this money organized, like, and where I was like, I was like, how do I do that? So it taught me like, okay, this is scary and I'm having a little bit of anxiety, but I can fucking do that. So the sorority actually provided me a space where I'm like, no, and no one was second guessing like, oh God, here's Wiederlight, you know, but they're like, they were like, yep. Okay. Yep. Like they just expected it. And so remember in high school, they were like, oh, you can't do anything alone. But this was a space where they're like, listen, every Thursday, you got to send the notes you know? And so it felt like, I don't know, I felt trusted. So I was like, I'm going to do this thing. So that the sorority actually gave me like academic / like business confidence, if you will.
Yeah. You're reminding me, I was the, I think it was called fundraising chair, but basically the same thing where we were working with some breast cancer society. I think it was called the Ellie Fund, but I had to do similar things. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but let's go. Because I was really nerdy in high school and not at all like comfortable in my own skin. Didn't think I'd be good at parties, stuff like that. So the fraternity thing helped me in terms of like guaranteed entry into that lifestyle, but it was like a crash course in it that I didn't wasn't prepared for, you know?
Right. Well, it sounds like it gave you the social aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't help with the grades or anything, you know,
Right. Yeah. That's
because
very
I was
fair.
finally like, oh, hey, you know, I can finally fuck around, and, like, have some fun and do weird stuff. Because before, I mean, I don't think I had any alcohol until I was 18, but also just in high school, just didn't have many friends. So it was a core group of nerds that I was friends with, and then feeling like I was some modicum of cool just by default, you know, was a
Right.
huge upgrade in terms of like me looking at myself and giving myself any kind of credit from a social standpoint, you know?
That's great. Yeah, no, I think that's an important part of Greek life, you know, like that can get, I think it could, I mean, it could be toxic, of course, but it
Oh
could
yeah.
give people some of those outlets. But for me, it was like the academic. Yeah.
I think I have mixed feelings because I don't love frat guys and all that other stuff, but it was a great time and something I definitely needed in terms of self confidence. So, what's give me the story? What happened next? Or at least where'd your dating journey, where this whole sexual empowerment thing start? When did you start even going down that path, or am I jumping too far ahead?
Well, yeah, I'll bridge where I was. It's funny because, okay, so I did theater and I studied abroad for like a mini study abroad in Amsterdam.
Ooh,
And it was yeah, but we'll just say yeah, we'll leave it at that. But also I'm like but also there was a piece of it that we did commedia dell'arte, which is like the masks and stuff. It's like very fit. It was very fucking physically demanding. So we would wake up, like, we had a lot of fun, but it was like hard, like from morning to night. It was like physically, and I hated my body.
mm,
So it was very fucking uncomfortable. Like I was in Trigger City. And I remember the teacher, you know, and they're also European, you know, so they were like, well, is this girl okay? Like she's fucking like freaking out.
yeah. Not
And
even
so,
normal American, but just
yeah, like
eccentric
here, oh
American.
God, like this fucking one is really, she needs all the help she can get. And so I remember one time, like someone, I don't even know how the fuck this happened, but like, I guess it was a thing like, oh, Wiederlight doesn't hug. And I was like, shh, like don't tell people that, because I knew like they would try to like press your buttons.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, Wiederlight doesn't hug. And so the teachers, like whatever there was, maybe 50 people in the class, they all piled on top. I was like, this is my personal hell, but like they piled on
Oh,
top of me. They
geez.
tried to break me. So it's funny. It was like, that was not really this work, but kind of in a way, you know, like slowly starting to, but I just wanted to paint an example of now I'm teaching people how to love their bodies. And then I couldn't even get a fucking hug. Like I was like,
A non-consensual group hug.
with like truly with so many sweaty people. Like I hate this.
Oh my God. Yeah.
My hell.
Each extra person adds sweat to the mix, I imagine.
Yeah, and I remember being like my shoulders to my ears. I was like, I'm not healing from this moment. I mean, I probably was in actuality, but I was like, I'm not healing from that. Like, this is
Yeah.
not healing for me.
It was too
You
much
know?
exposure therapy at once.
Yeah, I was like maybe like 2 hugs, and then. But now it's funny. Now I'm like the biggest hugger in the land.
Oh, that's awesome. I thought they were going to individually have to hug you. I didn't think it would be a mass hug. That's a weird move.
Yeah, I was like,
Maybe it's a
okay.
European thing.
Yeah, it was too much. I just hated. But that's an example of like where I was to where I am now.
Where'd you get
Yeah.
I want to know the stories of you not hugging people that made someone have to say that you're a not hugger.
I know, I'm like, who fucking ratted me out? I'd love to talk to them.
Exactly. Like, were you that obvious? Were you stiff arming people?
Yeah, well, actually, now that I think about it, I was, because they would always say, be like, oh, she's giving, but she's giving like, not, they weren't trying to be, you know, but they're like, oh, she's giving like head, because I would literally put my head into someone's like chest, because I was like, I don't want you to physically.
A headbutt more than a hug.
Truly, yeah. So I'd like give them a head, and they were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I'm like, like I feel uncomfortable. So they were like, "This girl needs help."
Physical touch is not your love language. Is
No, I think it is now,
okay. I don't know how that works.
but I just was so uncomfortable in my skin.
Yeah, and you didn't think anybody else would want to be touching that skin.
Yeah, so I was like, you know, like that's why I was like,
Not huggable.
so it was like that level, not huggable, right? Or like, I'm not perfect. Like I just took a class, I smell, even though like that's like not in my nature. I'm like Miss Perfume, but you know what I mean? Like I'm
Right.
like I
Yeah.
smell and I don't want to be touching it. Like there's all the,
It was you based,
It was very me based. And
not
people were like,
like
can
get
we
the hell
hug
out of
you?
here, stranger.
Oh, no, no, no.
It's more like you don't want any of this.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I made a whole tale in my head that was not true.
Did you wear Huggies growing up?
It's a
I
great
don't know.
question.
I don't know why we would know our own brand of
I know.
diapers
I'm
that
like, I
we,
gotta
we
ask my
wore.
mom that.
Okay.
But I was, yeah, and I was a warm child too. So this, like, I was a very touchy, affectionate, warm child, like just like a mush. So it's like it's sad because I mean now we're on the other side of it, but like you
Mm-hmm.
see, and this is a sidebar, but my mom always tells a story. There was a girl that was having like a panic attack before like first grade or some shit. And I like went to go hug her and I took her hand and I was like, I'll protect you, like I'll help you. And the mom was a bitch, but this is she was like, don't your daughter, like, don't, we're not huggers, like blah blah blah. So it's
Oh.
like we're not huggers, like don't have your daughter hold my, like she's tough, like she could get through this herself. She doesn't need someone to help her get through it. And so it's funny that I was very much warm and affectionate, and through I think different traumas, if you will, like being
Mm-hmm.
stupid, not like that, all these stories, I think then I created a shell of myself.
I'm surprised you got through Amsterdam alive because I've been there. It's such a great time. I don't know how you could not be fully distracted, especially with that workload you were saying. And I picture the classic comedy drama masks. I don't know what the hell version of acting you were talking about, but is that what we mean? Or what do we
Yes,
mean?
it's like those masks, exactly the ones that you're thinking of. They're like those like leather masks, and it's funny. They said like they were very strict. If they're like, you know, if we know you're high or hungover, like you will be kicked out of the program. And I have to note this, like this was at the like this was the semester after I got into the sorority. So I was like, I thought it was fun that I was like hot mess city first year. Like I'm partying with the seniors. I'm a hot mess. Like this is part of my identity. And then I had that thing where the sorority people were like, we look at you as smart. Like they saw me differently. And
Mm.
so I could, if I showed up to that study abroad freshman year, I mean, fucking forget it. But I showed up from a place of, I just failed that class. That woman embarrassed me. Um, you know, people are looking at me finally being like, I'm a smart, capable person. So it's funny because my friends were more partaking in activities and I was like, gotta go to sleep because I finally was seen like I can do good things where I was
Mm-hmm.
never seen like that before. So I actually, it's funny, I took advantage of that. Like I'm going to bed early and I'm, even though this is torture to go to this class every day, like I'm going to go and I'm going to do my best because I finally was seen in a way where like, you know, you're not a piece of shit, if you will.
Yeah, isn't it amazing though? But how you're seen by other people is such a huge part of what you then internalize as who you are versus
Yeah.
telling the world who you are, kind of
It's
thing.
so crazy. It's so interesting. And it's really hard to like remold, but I mean it's possible, but it's challenging.
Especially depending on how loud those voices are and who they were and what what transpired. But yeah, it's tough to, if you feel like you're a different person than you're being told by everybody else, you kind of cave at some point and go, well, they
Yes.
must be right. But you got through it, you got out of it.
I
It
did.
seems.
Yes, totally. And that's why I'm like, I can help people because I'm like, listen, let me tell you, I've been through it. Like, I'm not just like, I read this book and now I'm going to, you know, regurgitate this information to you. I'm like, I have single handedly helped myself with this issue and I've helped other people. So that's why, you know, this work is very important to me.
So you successfully over time started loving yourself. At what point did you start letting other people in?
Ooh, more recently, I would say.
Oh wow, was that long?
Yeah. Yeah, well, friends and stuff, no, but I remember maybe COVID makes me have a confused timeline, but maybe 7-ish years ago, 5, 7 years ago, I had a friend that was like, "You don't let anyone in," and I was like, "That's so interesting," because I'm not kidding. I have 4 million friends,
Mm-hmm.
so I thought I was killing it in the friend department. You know, like I have 4 million friends. Like, what are you talking about? But she's like, and to my experience, like you just don't let anyone in. You don't tell anyone anything. But in my brain, I'm like, well, I tell my spiritual friend. Like we process that together. But I saw that I'm like, ooh, maybe I am like being a little avoidant and not like fully showing myself and all of that. So I like, you know, obviously had to actively work on that.
How'd you do that? I mean, I
It
grew up
was a
in a
journey.
family that we didn't share feelings, so I still don't know sometimes. Any suggestions?
Yeah, I think that's like a big part of my work, or I don't think it's a big part of my work.
Mm-hmm.
Like normalizing your emotions and having like containers to have your emotions. Also, working with a coach. I mean, so often people are like, "Oh, I have a good support system," or like I'm okay. It's like, right. Like that's great that I'm so thrilled you have a good support system, but you need someone like, hi, it's you and me. I'm holding space for you. You can get messy as fuck. You know what I mean? Like I'm holding you, like it's great that you have a lot of friends, but you kind of get lost. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we all need this work to like someone to hold us through all of the shit, if you
Yeah.
will.
And an unguided support system is just a random smattering of support. It's not like it's directional.
Right. And it's no, you don't have any tools. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, it's great that you could talk to people, but it's not like they're like, you have a whole toolbox. You know what I mean? So that's why I really am, everyone's like, who's your work for? Like, who's your ideal client? I'm like, yeah, I kind of have that, but like this work is for fucking everyone. You know what I mean? Like everyone needs a space holder, a cheerleader, or someone by their side, like we all need that.
Yeah. Was someone there for you? Who was that?
Oh my God, I have had truly thousands of coaches.
Oh,
And
perfect.
yeah, yes, my bank account was like, what are you doing? But I've had truly, I mean, once I started creating the business, it was like, I haven't stopped hiring people, and I won't stop hiring people because I'm constantly evolving, so I constantly want to be putting myself into groups or one-on-one situations where I'm supported. I'm never going to stop growing. So like personal wellness and mental health and all that stuff is like I'm cool with that being a big part of my expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more people you talk to, the more experiences you gather from, the more insight you have. And you can obviously, I'm sure you, like me, you are also like a self-improvement junkie in terms of trying to gobble up information. Applying that to my life, a whole different story, but I can read all about it. I could probably tell someone else what to do. Telling myself what to do, it's a little bit harder, because I get to control what I actually do,
Yeah. And that's the bridge, which what a good coach is supposed to do is, and especially with my work, is like, it's so like we know what to do. I mean, we don't know everything. We have a pretty good idea. And like a lot of this stuff is very conceptual, like self-love, taking care of myself. But it's like, how are you going to implement that? And that I think is the point of there's lots of points, but that's one of the points of having a good coach, as if they're like, hey, like we're actually going to embody this shit. You know what I mean? Like we're actually going to live this, opposed to just having it be in the brain and circling around us.
I hate the word accountability, but you need it. I mean, you need someone who's going to hold you accountable, because for me, at least, it's easy to convince myself of not doing the thing or of spending the money I shouldn't or whatever. If it's only me, I got to convince. Very easy to convince myself. So I even sometimes with spending too much money, like you're saying, on coaching or whatever, because I love doing that type of stuff too. Sometimes I just wish it was someone who I had to justify what I was going to spend money on too. Because if I had to say it out loud, I probably would not spend it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. It's really so many, well, I guess so many things come up when you talk to people. That's something too, like that's not my strong suit, but with sales calls, people have every excuse in the book, and some of them are of course real, but a lot of it is just fucking fear. It's like, okay, it might come out and through, the fear of money or this or that, but it's like, there's so many things that come up. It's just underneath it is fear of like, fuck, like, what am I signing up for, and how will my life change, and will my life change? It's a loaded thing to like really commit to changing behaviors and stuff.
Yeah. And your target market struggles with that. So by definition, you're kind of having to deal with that a lot, I imagine.
Totally. To get them to even sign up. And then throughout throughout it, I have to hold space for them throwing a fit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, throw a fit. I get you. You know what I mean? Because they're like, and I'm like, I get that you're triggered. So I have to hold them through all of their triggers.
And is the entirety of your work getting them good with themselves to put themselves on the market, or do you go beyond that towards dating advice as well? Like, where do you stop in terms of?
I don't.
Scope?
So I usually, what I do is that, like,
when they stop,
because that's overwhelming, right? Yeah, exactly. Because that's overwhelming to be like, do you want to work with me for life? People are like, no. So what I do is I start with like 6-month increments, because it's like, it's like you can't get really anything out of one session. So like with 6 months, we go in there, we really do the work. And if they're, at the end of 6 months, if they're like, I need to like digest and take a break, I'm like, cool. Or if they're like, I'm ready for this, then we keep it moving, keep it shaking. But everyone comes in with different sets of issues, like maybe it's a sexual piece, maybe it's a confidence piece, maybe it's dating, so everyone is kind of, in a different place where they start and where they want to end.
Okay. You just reminded me, I wanted to ask you, is there any memorable dating blunders that stick out in your mind as either truly terrible dates or where you had difficulty in terms of, I don't know, showing your best self or even whatever it might be, the dating world?
It's like, I'm like, again, deceased from this question because so many people so I have this podcast, right? If anyone want to listen to this, my shameless plug, go listen to it. It's Welcome to the Weeder Life. And people are like, please do an episode on your bad dates. And I'm like, I've had, like, they're actually rancid. I also, now I don't, but for like 8 years, I lived in New York City. So like the assortment of humans is just spectacular.
A wide variety there.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's why, again, I can really usher people into this work because I'm like, oh, you had a bad date. I hear you. Let me help you. Not like, I've never dated before. You know what I mean? Like, we got you. You know what I mean? Like I've seen it. We've been there. Like I've actually done it, so.
Yep. You're not getting out of the so I need to know really bad date.
Oh, there's so many I don't know. There's so many. Like I can't even. I'll say this. I'll boil it down to this. Many times, people have come up to me, whether it be whether venue, at a restaurant, at a concert, whatever, and they'd be like, "Is that your boyfriend?" And I'm like, "Oh no!" And they're like, "Please don't let it be. He's horrible." And like these are strangers. Like I've had that experience happen more than once, where they're like, "Is that your boyfriend?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's like a second date or whatever," and they're like, "Run." And I'm like, well, Erica, why has that happened more than once? Actually, I'll tell you a crazy story. I'll give you a crazy story that's not dating, but just a crazy. Okay, great.
Hit me with it.
So great. Okay, so I don't know what happened. Maybe it was all of the sexual energy and this work. I was just doing the work, whatever. And I had a week. I'm not kidding. We're like 3 people. So have you ever heard of Via? It's like an Uber share. So it's like you share an Uber with like 6 people, if you will.
Okay, I get it.
Great. Yeah, you get the point. So I was doing Vias, and I'm not kidding. I had like 3 people physically run into the Uber and try to grab me out of them or the Via. So I'll give you a quick example. One day we went to a museum. I was feeling myself. I was like, yes. And this is, meanwhile, I just came off of retreats and stuff. Like I'm feeling myself, all the things. And we're on the West Side Highway. It's like a highway and there's millions of red lights and all this stuff. And the LOL, the ice cream man was like, hello. And I was like, yeah. Like, just like, don't pay any attention. And very quickly, the ice cream man's intensity rose So it went from just like him catcalling to eventually him whipping the Via with his towel to him physically jumping out. No, it's crazy. Him jumping out of the van to kiss and make out with the window. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I was like, all right, it's getting a little scary, but it's all good. The doors are locked. And then the man didn't lock the door, which is kind of, I'm like, don't doors lock automatically, but we'll never know how this happened. I was like, okay, we're at the next light. Like, don't look, like put your head up, like put your hand over your head. Like, just don't look. And the man physically opened the door and was squeezing me and tried to pull me out of the Via. I was like, I love you so much. So I tell you this, I'm not fucking kidding. This happened 3 times in 1 week. So it happened with the ice cream man, and then it happened with 2 construction workers. And I'm like, what spell did I put into the universe that this is happening?
I think he took the song too seriously. He screams, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I think he
stop.
He needed to make it happen. The construction workers make sense. They're stereotypical. The ice cream man? Oh my God. Did he have the song playing the whole time too?
No, that's why I was like, this is giving me, I don't like this feeling. That's like, he's jumping into the car. Yeah. So not much. Yeah.
If you see or hear an ice cream truck, do you get triggered?
I'm just like, like I'm scared. scared.
That's crazy though.
Isn't that? But that's
But
like
that's a good crazy. That's like being wanted crazy versus because for the longest time it seemed like you felt unwanted. So you went to the whole flip side of,
I
having to
did.
beat people off. No, that
That's
sounds
true.
terrible, but you know what I mean. Avoid beating people off.
Right. No, I didn't even put that together, but yes. I was like, why does it sound terrible? And now I'm like, I got it.
Okay, but that seems like a good switch. I mean, then you got to find a happy medium. I don't know what. Clearly, the
Right.
men were the problem there. I don't know what you did. You didn't do anything, but men in general tend to be a problem.
But I was maybe putting a vibe down, you know?
I don't know. I mean, what vibe is
Yeah.
that?
That's true.
Get out
That's
of
true.
your
I shouldn't
get
blame
out of your
myself.
ice cream truck and
Right. And
attack me.
come rip me out of this car. Yeah.
I'm wondering how many times he's done that. Is that his
I
move or is that
know.
you? Were you the one?
Well, don't
That's what
say
I
that
don't
because
know.
now I feel special. So you can't, don't,
I want it to be
I-
just you, but I don't also want it to be just
No.
you because he's a
Yeah.
psychopath.
It
And
definitely
I
has
want him to
happened
be
many
stopped.
times.
I don't want him to be, still driving around an ice cream truck. I feel like
I
he's a
know.
danger to society.
We
in
did
that
call the
truck.
cops, but they were like, what are we supposed to do with this?
Yeah, come on, the ice cream man. No,
Yeah,
we
like,
got,
we can't- I
more
mean-
important things.
Right. We need him. He's part of civilization. Like, we can't arrest the ice cream man. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, no, he's
understood.
part of the ecosystem. We can't.
Right.
disrupt
Like, we
that.
can't.
Those aren't even dates, but I love that. That's.
I know. I went off tangent. That's
No,
why I
you're
was like,
fine.
sorry to completely. But okay, I'll say that's the general vibe, if you will. Not like that
It's
intense, but just like
okay. A lot of times, people you shouldn't be with, strangers are telling you, and also you're getting latched onto by some of these folks.
are just like odd ducks, and like no shame, no judgment to them, but just like something. Not like like I'm down for weird, but like something's. I may be murder. Like something's a little bit, and that also is telling of like what I was. But like again, no meanness to me, but like why was I attracting that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. You seem
I
like an
had to.
even duck.
Huh?
You seem like an
Yeah.
even duck, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Thank you. It depends on the day,
I don't
but
know
yeah.
if that's a good match with odd ducks. I'm not even sure where I'm going with it, but
No, listen, I like it.
okay. So, random question. Hadn't
Yes.
prepared it. How many dates do you think you've been on, or
Oh.
what's your like dating experience? Because it seemed like you said for a long time you didn't let anybody in,
But still, okay, so didn't let anyone in.
and then the floodgates.
Here's the tricky part. Didn't let anyone in, but I also was like, I have to because I want this, and it's also like socially the norm.
Gotcha.
So here's the thing, like I still was dating, but I was badly behaved.
Gotcha. No, I've been.
Yes. Yeah. So it was just like, ooh, you are messy. But it wasn't 0 to 60. It was always pretty consistent. I mean, towards the end, it was, more a mass volume of people, but it was pretty consistent, but I was just badly behaved. Like, oh, she's a treat right now.
Yeah, and putting on a performance, it seems.
Putting on a performance and just like, just both avoidant and being like, and then also like anxious. So it was like, oh God, like you're so confusing, Yeah,
mixed signals to yourself.
Yes, and to the person, they're like, I'm very confused by you. And I'm like, okay, that's fair.
But they want to marry you, apparently. Drag you out of the car.
Well, some of them, I think I was so horribly behaved. They're like,
why
I
are
can take
men
a
so much worse? You don't hear the reverse that much, You don't hear about an ice cream woman dragging a man out of a car.
You sure don't.
I generally don't have a lot of faith in my gender, unfortunately. And I could be wrong. Maybe women are just as creepy. But my experience in life is that men, in general, like I'm not happy to be. I don't think I'm in a good group of people in terms of like, yeah. Or just we got a lot of bad eggs, bad apples,
Right.
Yeah,
okay,
not
but that's
doing
a good
us
point.
any favors.
That's a good point though, because that's actually part of my work. Like with the men that come in the door, they're like, fuck, I feel, especially during this time, like I feel I want to be, if they are dating women, they're like, I feel like I want to honor them during this like Me Too movement. You know what I mean? Like during this Me Too timeline, like, and so there are so many good guys that come through and they're like, I hate how I'm associated. So that's a big thing that I do work on with my men clients. Like, okay, let's get so we already have so many labels on men, like you're an asshole, you suck, you're a cheater, you're that, so it's like, how can we decondition them? And then also for women, and also not, our non-binary friends as well, but for women that are dating men, or men that are dating men, it doesn't matter. It's kind of irrelevant. Yeah. They're like, men suck and men are that. It's like, I have to help them. You can't fucking go on dates if you hate the people that's across the table from you. So it's like
you got to separate the bad from the good.
You have to, or else you're going to, you get into a relationship and you're going to think they're a cheater, or you're going to hate them, or you're going to think they're shady and sketchy, so that's like a big part of my work too, is like deconditioning. And then also like actually trusting and finding evidence that people are good, because then dating will be hellish.
What's your opinion on open relationships?
I'm cool with it if people are cool with it. Like I have many clients that are poly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're just cool with whatever, as long as everybody's on board and no one's getting hurt.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, and the whole thing about being in open relationships is having, like, you have to be fucking spectacular at communication.
Yeah, of course.
And like communicating period, but communicating your wants and needs. It's not necessarily my jam, but I hold space for people that is their jam. And I'm like, great. Like, let me, I just had a client literally right before this that is, like in polyamorous relationships. And that was something we're working through. Like, she's like, I'm jealous and this and that. So it was like combing through all of the triggers that come with being in an open relationship.
Is there any type of, I guess it would be obvious what kind of relationships you would advise against? Obviously, codependency, toxic, anything resembling like a lack of reciprocity in terms of feelings. But is there any general tips in terms of dating to like notice warning signs early that things might not be what they should be?
Yeah, I would, my friend and I played this game and we called it, I don't know, we guess we called it nothing, but it was like.
That's a great name for it.
Voice. Yeah, we called it. I don't think we ever sat down and named the game, but but we did this thing where we were like, okay, let's call out the red, because historically in the past I would see, there were just the red flags were ablaze, and I was like, anyway. So the game was, let me note to you, so I'm held accountable, the red flags. Let me also note to you the green flags. And so it was someone to like hold the space. So she was like, hey, like, let's just remember this, or like, oh, let's remember this green flag. So I think that's the thing. And if you don't have that person, obviously, you could hire, if it's within your means, hire a coach, whatever. But I think something also is listening to your intuition, because we know, not that we know this is going to be our person or persons, but like, if you have a weird gut feeling. So I think like a big piece of this puzzle is trusting your intuition and trusting your gut.
Okay. And then just for someone who's in a relationship they don't really want to be in, what would you say? Because it seems like that would probably be a lot of anxiety around figuring out how to exit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would make sure that that's definitely what they want.
Yeah.
Like, is this like, is this something that can be worked out? Or if it's like, no, it's just not a match, or they're abusive, like, there's all different shades of this, but, I would help them safely exit the situation. Obviously, if someone abusive, that's a whole different, conversation. Yeah. Right. But if it's sometimes people are cool, like it's funny, I literally just did a breakup episode that released, I guess today actually, on my podcast, and it's about like conscious uncoupling. So like, how can we? And
just so everyone knows, it'd be November 17th, because there's no chance this is coming out now. So.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, everyone's like, what is today?
Feel free to go back and listen to that episode of the podcast.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Which was what was it?
Oh, my podcast.
Yep.
It's called Welcome to the Weeder Life.
Okay. WIEDERLIFE.
And I'm like, I have to like look at it. I'm like it's a keyboard. WIEDERLIFE. There we go.
Perfect. I'm gonna do a one that's in competition with you about marijuana, be the Weeder Life, and we'll see who can out SEO the other one.
Great. Perfect. I can't wait. Can't wait for that competition.
No, I certainly wish you all the success. I don't know where you're at with that podcast. How has it been going?
It's good. When I first launched it, which was a few weeks ago, I had a major fucking vulnerability hangover
Oh yeah.
because people would like literally from high school be like, I heard your podcast. I'm like, like I told you this before we hopped on, but like I did a radio show for years, but that was very not really, it was like, this is a meditation. This isn't like, okay, like that. I mean, I just talked about breakups, and another guest I had was on like sexual erotic blueprints. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm dying for someone from high school to hear this, but it's just,
At least back then you didn't even like yourself, so whatever, screw what they thought, right?
And now it's like, like, it's really testing, like, it's
no, you're
really
number
testing
one,
the
though.
work. Right.
Not
It's
the
like
principles.
Oh yeah, I get the joke. See, this is where my auditory processing comes in. I'm
It's
like,
okay.
we've seen it. Yeah.
Could be my jokes are terrible. It's not necessarily
No, it's
learning
auditory
disability.
processing. I'm always like 5 minutes later, I'm like, haha, that was hilarious. But yeah, I am number one. Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and not knowing who's going to listen or if anything's going to help or even if what you said was too much. Because I mean, it depends on who the guest is. I don't have to necessarily step outside my comfort zone a lot. And also it's mostly about the guest. But I mean, based on what you're talking about, I mean, it's got to be touchy subjects all the time,
Yeah. And the deal. Like, I'm in a room alone talking to a mic. What happened?
I just like that it was touchy, like as in double entendre. I don't notice. I was saying this yesterday. I don't know what a single entendre is. I guess that's just a meaning of a word.
Oh, I've never even thought of that.
I don't know what an entendre is. I don't know French enough.
I don't either. Yeah,
So,
I'm like, we should Google it one day.
I know. I thought about it last night. I still haven't looked it up, so I don't think I'm going to look it up anytime soon.
Yeah,
but
no.
when you get two of them together, it's way funnier.
Hey, it's true. It's true. No, but it's yeah. Like I would say, the deal. Like, you're sitting alone in a room recording this podcast, so it's easy at the time to just vomit shit out. And then, for an example, for a high school friend was like, "Oh my god, when you were talking about that story, was that so and so?" And I was like, "Ooh, forgot I said that." Like, so it's yeah, it could bite you in the and not bite you in the ass, but it's like, oh shit, I didn't realize my level of visibility.
Well, you can get to edit yours. I get to edit this one, so thankfully, I get to choose whether I don't think you said anything too bad that anyone would notice.
Right, exactly.
Except for if the ice cream man listens. But I mean, if he listened to my podcast, I think that would be the best listener I've had because it would be so unexpectedly coincidental, and I would hope he'd reach out to me. Almost nobody reaches out to me. And by the way, since you're early on in your podcast journey, don't worry about metrics. Just worry about putting them out there because for a long time, no one was listening to this. You're actually on the good side of it where some people will be listening to it. Yes. But it can seem like you're talking to nobody for a while, which you kind of are. But you never know where it's going to go. And I'm proud of you for doing that because it's not easy.
Thank you.
So is yours mostly interview format where you got?
It's mostly, to be honest, me talking about like topics. So like breaking down and again, coaching, like we talked about, can be an expense, so I wanted to give people a free resource. So I'm talking about like, go in for like an hour talking about like breakups, love, date, like give a big boom, and then I'll sprinkle guests here and there. So like this last week I had an erotic blueprint coach. Next week I'm doing tantra. Someone in a few weeks I'm doing like energy and money, so it's like I am basically probably 75%, and then I'll sprinkle guests that I think are like ideal for the listeners.
That's awesome though, because I mean, while I can talk forever, I can't necessarily put together like useful information for that amount of time. So that's good for you.
Thank you. I'm running out, but I'm like, ooh, what else do I talk about? So it's getting to that point, but yeah.
Well, that's awesome though. Have you had any failures so far in relation to the podcast?
That's a good question. It's maybe more of like a learning lesson is that I was more bullshitting in the first three, not bullshitting, but I like wrote a skeleton, if you will, and improv'd and riffed off of that. And that made me feel, I think, really vulnerable because I was like, oh, people are listening to that the most because it was the first 3 episodes and they probably are the worst. Where now I have a structure, like I still like to improv, but it's like a tighter flow. So like I will improv within that, but it, it weaves in and out. And I'm like, fuck. So I think that it's not a failure, but it definitely gives me a little bit of anxiety. Like it's a perfectionist piece. Do you know what I mean? So
For sure.
yeah,
Uh,
which I'm like, I have to surrender to that.
from what I've seen, although people do go back to the beginning a lot, like once I started getting listeners, they were mostly listening to the most recent one. So hopefully that's the same way for you, and you'll feel like they're hearing the best,
Right.
highest
And I'm
quality
trying
version.
to pump it out. I'm like, let's get rid of those first three. Like, let's pump out the new content,
Oh, absolutely. Because like I say, uh, the reason why is because I can't really fake it. So I don't say fake it till you make it. I say fail it till you nail it. And so you're doing that, which
Yes.
is exactly what you should be doing. Now, is there anything else on the topic of failure that you want to discuss before we get to the last couple questions, which are more forward-looking, future stuff?
I think, I was going to say my business, but we kind of touched on that, like failing in the first few years. But yeah, I think we kind of like the cliff notes of that is like thinking I'm going into a business and it's going to be like a six in the beginning, thinking, I mean, we're in this industry where everyone's like, I make 6-figure months and, or whatever. And so I think that was a real slap.
Yeah.
Like I just, I think that was a quote unquote failure. And I mean, I've had many failure launches, where I'm like, I'm going to come out of this with 6 figures or 10 clients. And it's like, I mean, it was great because I learned a lot, but it was for sure crickets.
Yeah. There's a lot of, if you build it, there will come kind of things that you think about. And then you got to like really get people to come. It's not like,
right. Well, that's all. I love the best part is that, and it's all good, but like people that don't have businesses are like, if you build it, it'll come. I'm like, let me tell you something. I'm like, you have to hunt for those. Like, that's not necessarily the truth.
And anybody who's pitching get rich quick things are either usually scams of some sort or just happen to get ridiculously lucky. I imagine, right. Because for most people, yeah, it's not easy, and most, from what I've seen, almost every truly successful person has had many failures that led up to that. You just don't usually hear about it, and that's kind of the point of this podcast, is to like shine some light on some of that. So I appreciate you sharing that. As a guest on the show, you get a get out of fail free card, which is just like the get out of jail free card. I don't know why I say it's just like it, because it's nothing like it, but it's named like it, where you can use, I'm going to pretend to give you a card. There's no card in my hand.
Thank you so much.
All right. And so it's, you can use this card to pursue a career, a hobby, a passion, a thing that you've avoided trying to do because of the amount of failure. If you had to get out of fail free card and you couldn't fail, is there something you'd use that for?
Fuck, so many things. I guess I'll give you one.
You get one of them only.
I know. You're
if
like,
you're
no,
another guest later, you can get another one.
You're like, listen to the instructions. I'm like, okay, so 1, 2. You're like, no. God, I'm torn because I'd say my business, but that's boring. I'll say acting because I'm also an actress.
Yeah. What? It's. Can you expand on that? I don't know. And what?
Yeah.
I've been an extra, a background actor, whatever you want to call it, in a couple things, but I don't.
It's fun.
It was a lot of waiting around, but yeah.
Yeah.
What's your actress experience? Just real quick, just so we know.
Yeah, the Cliff Notes is voiceover actor, stage. I'm in SAG-AFTRA, Actors Equity, so stage, film, TV, the whole thing, and you have to. And for so many years, I was like, I will do anything to have this work. Like, I don't care. Like, I will put everything on the line for this thing. And recently it's been, I've thought that since I was 8 years old. So it's been a weird shift because I'm like, I don't want to put everything on the line for this one thing. So it's weird, right? Because for how many years I was. Yeah. So if I knew I could still live my life and have success with it, I would take that. That'd be cool.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a good answer. Especially because you've already failed a bunch at it, or at least not. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth. You didn't really say you did that, but my point was, clearly, if you want to use it for that it hasn't been easy, and I can only imagine how difficult it is to audition for things. It's a literal rejection of yourself, because it's not like it's whatever your resume, it's good, like, we don't like you for this role, it's like a very much, it's got to hurt
And to come so close to these huge things. And I think that's what is relentless about it. It's like, I think that's what's so relentless about it is like you fail, but you're so close, and then you get a job. Like, so it's just a fucked, relationship, because it's like you fail, you're so close. You got something, yes. And then we're back to stage one, so it's like, it's just relentless. So
super high percentage failure, like, type of thing where you have to just.
Right. Because even if you get one job, it's like, oh, that's sick, but we're restarting again, literally after the shoot is done, so it's a lot. So I think I would want, like, I guess my free pass would be like having ease around that.
Okay. So what would you be in? All right. You're using the card. What movie are you in next?
Yes. So this is what I get called in for all the time, as you could probably imagine, but I'm literally called in all the time for like comedies and shit. But
what do you want?
Oh,
do you want to be a superhero? Do you want to be
oh, fuck no.
I hate those movies too. Not that you do, but
yeah, no, I'm like a hard no.
But a comedy.
A comedy, like, I would want my own show, like my own, like, Broad City Modern Family.
Oh, I love Broad City.
Yes, like that type of vibe. And then also in conjunction with that, since I get so famous, I also would like to have my own comedy special.
Clearly.
But I don't want to do the comedy scene of like, I have to work, because that's fucking ruthless.
You want to skip it.
I want to skip, like, going to the Comedy Cellar, and I just want to have my Netflix special,
Me too. I want to do the same thing. I don't want there to be a reason, but all of a sudden I've just got A-class material and I'm going for it, rather than having to bomb, which is obviously like required for many years. It seems like, no matter what.
Yeah. Ugh. So rude. Yeah, that's why I'm like, can we just skip over that?
Every 5 seconds, they're judging you by not laughing, and you can hear rude. It's frankly, it's crazy that we even have that as a job, but it's awesome. And the people who can do it, I love it. I mean, that's what I would use my card for, but it's too scary. I just have a Google Doc where I write down joke ideas, and a lot of times it's not even a joke. Last night I wrote down one about margaritas and licking the glass. I mean, we're doing COVID and I'm licking glasses to get the salt off. Like, where else do you lick a glass?
That's actually so true.
Why would you do that? It's like such a weirdly hilarious. Acceptable thing, but there's no joke
during
yet.
The pandemic.
Yeah.
It's there.
There's other ways to get salt on your tongue, but we lick the glass. I don't get it. And we trust that it's clean. Okay. And the next and last question before we just reiterate where people can find you is, what's the thing you're going to fail at next?
Ooh, this is dark, but I was going to say my relationship.
Oh,
not in a like it's going to end, because I have to not put that out there, but I have to, this is something I'm actively working on, is like, it's not always going to be perfect, Erica, because I think I put a pressure on myself. Like, you're a relationship coach, you're a dating coach, so much, but like, you're not like fucking floating in the clouds, like you're not. So I think I have to make room that, like, some days you're going to be overwhelmed and some days you're going to go to bed angry at each other or annoyed at each other.
Yeah. And I'm assuming as a coach, you feel like you need to have the idyllic relationship that, like,
oh yeah. And I think so do people that sign up. I mean, I don't think the person I'm with now does, but I think that so often people do,
because they know you
have put that. Yeah. They're like, whoa, that means, and I'm like, this is so much pressure. So yeah, I think I have to be cool with failing at that a little bit.
Yeah. Whereas with me, they're like, world's number one failure. I don't know what I should expect here.
It's a way to go.
I guess low expectations. Okay. And then let's reiterate where people can find you, just in case they missed it the first time.
Cool. So we'll do the speed through, which is Insta.
Do it slowly.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's the end of the episode. If they don't want to listen, they'll get out of here right now.
I'm like I'm so used to. Yeah, they're like, bye. Okay, so I actually, for your listeners, have 3 specific ways to get in touch with me. You can go ahead and stalk my Instagram. That's free, and it's very non-invasive. And because I know you're probably like, what is a sexual empowerment coach? So I'm like, we could have that space, and you could do that at @WeTheLight_LLC. I also have a free book, and again, you don't have to talk to me, you never have to speak to me in your life. I wanted to give you that type of thing as well, and that book is called From Perfectionist to Pleasure Expert, and you can get that at my website, which is www.wethelight.org. And my last one, if you're like, ooh, I want free things and I want to talk to this wild woman and hear about how I could feel confident and empowered and all the good things, like, let's hop on a call. So what I do is every month, as we talked about before, I'm like a side hustle podcaster. So my schedule is so crazy busy. So what I do is every month I open up just like literally a handful of spots, and then I close them. And they're totally free, totally complimentary. And I want people to feel like they have a place to like talk about this stuff, and feel like safe and seen and like get tools and advice, literally totally free. They go in, they go out. And if they, like what I'm putting down, of course we could talk about working together. If not, God bless. And, now we're friends for life. So there's ways to get me. And I also have a podcast they could stalk as well, but I'm not trying to overwhelm everyone. So just stalk my website. I give lots of free things because I want people to, this is like a triggering topic, so yeah. I want people to feel like there's different ways I can interact with you in a way that feels safe. So just head to my website, which is www.wethelight.org, listen to the podcast, book a free call, none of the above, whatever jams for you is cool with me.
And the book was from Perfectionist to, I missed it.
Pleasure Expert.
Oh,
right. And it's cool.
Much better than the first half.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, second half. But it's cool because it's not just about like sexuality and sensuality. Like, sure, that's part of it, but it's also like living a pleasure life. Like, I have joy in my life and I feel good in my body. Like that, I feel like everyone wants some of that. So definitely be sure to grab that free book. And then the best thing, it looks like you're about to ask a question.
You go to .org is what I was going to say, but keep going.
Yeah, I saw it inside of you. I wanted .com, but it wasn't available at the time.
I didn't know you could just buy .orgs. I thought you had to be an org of some sort. I mean, like, I thought there's some requirements.
Watch, it's like illegal that I have this website.
I don't know. I own like 60 or 70 domains. Maybe I just didn't try for .org because I lumped it with .gov or something, and who knows? I just thought you had to be.
Yeah, it sounds official though, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're an org.
I'm an org. I'm an organization.
It doesn't sound like a good compliment to say to somebody, but yeah, you're an org.
Yeah, but listen, I'll take it. It makes it more fish. And then the last thing is, which is again the thing that I would lightly not push, but like gently encourage people to sign up for, because like I don't do this often. Like I said, I open it up and I close it up. 60-minute free complimentary session. We talk about all the things like we talked about in this, like having someone to hold space for you, et cetera, et cetera. We'll do a baby session. And at the end, if we're matched to work together, we are. If we're not, all good too. So, and that's at my website again, which is www.wethelight.org. I have to use my fingers for the W's.
No, it's funny, as I didn't realize it till yesterday when I had to say it out loud. I say HTTP : / because when I was growing up, I didn't know it was a colon or whatever. And since then, it's always been : even though no one would ever call a colon that.
I wouldn't even think to call it a colon though. So I went with you on the double dot journey.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. But I was saying yesterday, I'm getting to that age. I need a double dot onoscopy,
Oh, you sure do.
That's scary in its own right.
That is.
Well, I appreciate you for being on the podcast. I appreciate you being vulnerable, sharing yourself, being inside a crazy box that the listeners don't see, but maybe we'll do something with the video where they can. But for those who are just listening, you're in what looks to be an Aztec tomb that's converted into a podcasting box. Is that right?
Yes, I'm crying. It is an Aztec tomb. You got it right.
It reminds me of Arrested Development with the if you've seen it, with the Aztec tomb, which is like a magic trick that Job does at the beginning, but it's got similar vibes. It seems like, is it Aztec-y? Is it got a?
Yeah, now I need to go buy a new one.
No. And if you do, send me that one so I can have
great.
something to do. some more visual. Well, thanks again for being on here, and I can't wait to have the listeners hear it. And I definitely suggest they go listen to your podcast, even though I haven't. So I'm blindly suggesting it, but I have no doubt that it'll be interesting, fun stuff. And I appreciate you taking the time and being a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Would you like to be more efficient, productive, and confident in your work at the office? Over 750 million people worldwide use Excel, yet it's still a misunderstood and frequently misused tool. That's why I created Excel Exposure, so you can work smarter and not harder. The Excel Essentials course gives you over 5 hours of in-depth video lessons, plus it comes along with my master workbook, which has every function, shortcut, and all the examples to follow along. Investopedia actually included my course in their list of 6 best online Excel classes of 2021, saying it's best for visual learners. As someone who's an expert in failure, I can certainly teach you and your team how to avoid spreadsheet failures and create bulletproof Excel documents. Use the coupon code FAILURE for 20% off of the lifetime access price. Visit excelexposure.com for more information and also my existing award-winning free training. Thanks for joining me on the Failure Guy podcast. If you enjoyed it, feel free to tell somebody. And don't forget, always try to fail it till you nail it. Till next time.